got a big battle in front of us, baby. And it's just starting. So let's get funky like a monkey. For 15 years, the American dream has done it with you. Don't fail me now. Lord, don't fail me now.
The Wrestlebros are back.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? How are you? Welcome to the Wrestlebros. This is Captain Lou. On the other side, we got Vic Blaze on the ones and twos here. We're actually going to be talking about all things related to professional wrestling and maybe a few other things not so much related. So Vic, we're going to get this thing started. Let's get it started with our friends over at SmackDown on Fox. Tell us what happened, please. Educate the good people.
A few things happened, but for me, one of the most important things or most entertaining things was, of course, Ding Dong. Hello. Let me tell you, I love me some.
For those who don't know what this reference is, it's
Ding Dong.
Our close, long-time friend, Ms. Bayley.
Yes, Bayley, who's been on an absolute tear. You wanna give her some bad booking? You wanna pin her when she shouldn't be pinned? It's okay, because she's gonna come out with some nice glasses and a turtleneck and get over all over again. In my eye,
looking like Sally Jesse Raphael meets Harry Potter.
I don't know, but it was great. She just looked so polished. I was like, this right here is a star. This is a talk show host that takes her job seriously.
Kelly Ripa, look out! Your gig is in jeopardy.
Oh my God, I love Bayley. I popped so hard when she came out through the door. She had a little door gimmick. If you're gonna do a talk show, you got to do it right. Oh my God! Oh, just her coming out the door alone had me. You know, and then the ding dong sound effect.
So she had you at ding dong hello?
She had me at ding dong hello. Either way, this is her guest is Bianca Belair. They got a little thing going on.
EST of WWE.
The EST. And Bayley had a nice little line. If you're the EST and I pinned you, then what does that make me? So although I had a good time with Bayley here, I don't know if I'm gonna like the next thing that they do, because it looks like they're gonna have some sort of obstacle course competition. I don't know. I mean, I if Bayley just uses it to beat her up like we usually get, like remember all those times that I'm gonna arm wrestle you, or let's do a weightlifting thing, or let's see who can bench more, and we never get a payoff.
Well, in this situation, I think that it's meant to do a couple of things. This is going to be actually an updated version of traditional wrestling storytelling, meaning in the territory days when you had the same wrestlers going into the same towns week in and week out. One of the things that ends up happening is that when the baby faces want to get heat on the heels, you can't necessarily pin them all the time, because if you do, the heat is all gone and there's nothing to return with. I think that this is an updated version of that, meaning this obstacle course and all of these things are going to be meant, I believe, in some way, shape, or form, to embarrass Bayley and put babyface heat on Bianca Belair, make her look powerful, make her look strong while embarrassing Bayley. And then when it comes time to the potential payoff for a match, that's when Bayley gets her heat for real. So I don't perceive that this particular segment, this obstacle course thing coming up on this week's SmackDown TV, I don't believe that you're going to get the heat there. I think it's going to be Bayley's going to be embarrassed by Bianca Belair. And then this will lead, maybe the closer we get to the Royal Rumble, I don't know if that's going to lead either to a singles match at the Royal Rumble, or that there's going to be like a real interaction there between the two of them. But I don't perceive this to be the moment where Bianca gets taken down. It's going to be the moment where Bayley's going to get embarrassed. And I think that that's just kind of like good classic old school booking. It's a new take on it, but I think that's what I perceive happening in this particular segment coming up on SmackDown this week.
Real quick, out of these weird competitions, what's your favorite all time?
What, the obstacle course?
No. You know, whenever a wrestler tells another wrestler, "I'm gonna beat you at something that's not a wrestling match."
You mean my favorite as like which one I like the most or which one I like the least?
No, your favorite. Which one you like?
My favorite? Wow, I think traditionally, for some oddball reason, it's always been like that arm wrestling contest. For some reason, it's very boring, you know. Like, but
do you have a specific one?
Let me get back to you on that.
Let me tell you my favorite.
Let me get back to you. I don't have one off the top.
Tell me if you remember this. Of course you remember it. Triple H, Scott Steiner, pose.
Oh my God! Yes, that was God. That was.
The only bad thing about that is that, in my opinion, Triple H had a better physique for bodybuilding because Scott Steiner, although he was bigger and scarier, but his proportions were all over the place. He had a freak physique, and Triple H had a nice physique.
I think that what you're trying to say is that Triple H's body was symmetrical versus Scott Steiner being asymmetrical.
Yeah,
and I saw that clip back probably a couple of days back. There was, I saw a clip of it, and all I remember was that it took Triple H. It felt like it took Triple H a month to take off the jacket. Because he was just milking, and I know he's just being a heel and all that stuff, but yeah. All I know is that when I saw that segment, I was like, Triple H looked better than Steiner.
Triple H looked great. Triple H has one of the best bodybuilding physiques in wrestling history. Like, it's just in his prime, his absolute prime. Even now, he looks great.
I will say that I think the best that Triple H looked, and I know that we're getting a little sidetracked here, but I think the best that he looked was the time when he got in shape to wrestle Brock Lesnar at that WrestleMania, the one they had in New York. I believe it was 29, I think. This 2013, I believe, where he got in really great shape, where I looked at her and I was like, man, I think that's the best he's ever looked.
Well, he's had a lot of
he's had different looks throughout his career.
Yeah.
Some a little better than others, but
yeah.
But I think that was where he was at his best. My personal opinion.
All right. Speaking of chiseled physiques, we also had a nice little match, and this is what SmackDown seems. I don't know who's in charge. If there's different people in charge of Raw and SmackDown, or there's more love going on in SmackDown, or
it's called Fox TV paying $2 billion over 4 years for SmackDown.
Yeah, but it's Fox.
They're Fox have a voice?
Does Fox have like an executive that knows about wrestling that's just chilling there telling them what to do? I don't know. It's weird.
Well, I certainly don't know that. My disposition is that I think that WWE probably might be putting in a few more resources onto SmackDown, because I think SmackDown is obviously the better show in my opinion.
But even like
it is much easier to watch than Raw, that's for sure.
It's like you got Cesaro. They've been able to get Cesaro and Shinsuke back to like at least in the minds of the people, like getting them a little bit excited about these two people with no problem. It's like,
but look who they were working against.
No, I know, but you have whatever the same thing you just did with Daniel Bryan, have a killer match, and he did the same thing with Shinsuke. It was more in a little segment, but a little section of the match. But Daniel Bryan goes out there.
It was part of a larger match.
Yeah. But Daniel Bryan goes out here and tears the house down with Cesaro, and all of a sudden you're like, I kind of want to see more Cesaro, which I've always been saying this. I don't forget those moments where Cesaro has, completely teared the house down. And, I know with wrestling, they think that the booking doesn't matter, whatever. Like, people do forget about you when you're not used. Unfortunately, it's hard to keep, that excitement going if they're using you like garbage. I'm going to forget about you eventually and go, okay, that guy's garbage. But, Cesaro, I always kept him, I'm like, I just got to see more of this guy.
my position on Cesaro has always been the one thing that I give him, and this is a testament to him, to Claudio Castagnoli, to Cesaro, his consistency. In other words, no matter how he's, where he's positioned or what the match is supposed to be, he's always extremely consistent in terms of his look, his work ethic, and his match quality. It's just a matter that in this particular instance, it was spotlighted, and the fact that he's working in this instance against Daniel Bryan, who WWE has, over the last, better part of the last half decade, have done a fairly good job with him in terms of, you know, always presenting him in a positive light, even if he's, no matter where he's positioned on the card, he's always, he's always spoken of very highly. And the way that the match was presented is that even though it felt awkward for me to buy the story, but it was a matter that, this was a staple win for Cesaro. It almost felt like Cesaro had not been in the WWE. It's like, he's been there for 10 years. He's wrestled at every level in the WWE, is wrestled against everybody. It's just a matter that at times we the fans don't necessarily overly recognize it, because he's so consistent with everybody that, for lack of a better term, we kind of take it for granted. And the fact that he's not, that he's not being positioned as a main event guy, that he's not being pushed in the top of the card, it almost makes us think like, all right, well, he's great, but whatever. There's 30 other guys who are great too, and they're not positioned as strongly as they should be. So then we kind of like, we take them for granted, and then they kind of blend in. This match was solid. They did all their signature stuff. Cesaro won emphatically, which is the right thing to do. And if if there is truth to the fact that Daniel Bryan is on his way out, meaning that he's transitioning from a full-time guy to a part-time guy, and he's doing jobs on the way out. What a tremendous way to do jobs for guys like Nakamura, for a guy like Cesaro, who are fantastic talents. They've always been fantastic, and they haven't gotten the proper shine or the proper spotlight that would be beneficial to them. So I thought it was a very fun match. Both guys did a hell of a job, and having Cesaro win was the right thing to do, because now you can spotlight him, and hopefully now, again, like I said before, one of the problems that WWE has had is not doing a good enough job with the guys in the middle or the guys underneath, building them up. So in case when the main eventers are not available, or they need guys, to fill spots at the top, it's much easier for the audience to buy into it, because you've done a good enough job of presenting them as such to where getting to that next level doesn't seem to be that unbelievable.
All right, let's talk about this whole contract signing, Roman Reigns, Adam Pearce storyline. Now, I get what they were trying to do, right? Roman Reigns is kind of pushing his power around. He's being a dick. He thinks he can get whatever the hell he wants. So, essentially, Adam Pearce is giving him a taste of his own medicine. He's going to set it up, get him to sign it, and swerve him. This, under normal circumstances, would work for me, and I'd be totally okay with it. Here's the problem. You presented me Adam Pearce against Roman Reigns, and you are a company that almost never delivers on your promises. This is my thing. They tell you they're going to do something, they never do it. They promote stuff and don't do it all the time. You disagree?
Yes, but I'll let you finish, and then I'll
more than any brand in the world, they promote something that they're gonna do something and they don't do it. They tell you that there's gonna be a match on Raw. We're gonna have these people here. Carlito was supposed to be on Raw a couple weeks ago. He wasn't there. They tell you something's gonna happen and it doesn't happen. So now you're gonna tell me that Adam Pearce is gonna face Roman Reigns. Okay, I get it. A match with Kevin Owens will be better than a match with Adam Pearce. However, Not if Roman Reigns has been beating the shit out of Kevin Owens for months. Why do I care about Roman Reigns against Kevin Owens? I love Kevin Owens. I'm happy Kevin Owens is getting opportunities. But if Roman Reigns has already beaten you in 5 straight matches, why do I care? I don't care. I don't want to see Kevin Owens against Roman Reigns. I don't.
All right. So then my question to you would be: is who would you want to see in that?
Adam Pearce. You told me I was gonna get Adam Pearce against Roman Reigns. If you were gonna beat Adam Pearce's ass and he was gonna get 1 minute of one hope spot, I would have been fine with it. I already seen Roman Reigns against Kevin Owens. What are they gonna do that's any different?
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you. I think that the match that they had in the TLC match was, it's kind of hard to continue after that. You'd figure that would be the exclamation point, and that would have been the end of that story. Here's where I disagree. Although WWE has had a history of not, bait and switching, I'm okay with the fact that they're doing it here only because of the fact that, first off, Adam Pearce has absolutely zero relationship to the WWE audience as a wrestler. It would make no sense for him if this was a television match. If that match were to take place on SmackDown TV, that's fine, because it's a match that you can have on television. You can hype it up, and then you can do whatever storyline pieces you need to do to kind of make it stick. On pay-per-view, it's not going to work. Now, I'm okay with WWE doing it, primarily because they did it 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks prior to the show. So it's not as if they're doing it the day of. If they do it the day of, then I'm like, okay, that's a bait and switch. You shouldn't do that. You've been promoting the match now for a month at that point. But they literally, they did it for about a week, and then they did the swerve. Fine. Now, do I agree that Kevin Owens is not the best representative in that spot? Yes, he's not the best representative. Although the TLC match, he basically, it was a 2-on-1 handicap match.
Mm-hmm.
So they made Kevin Owens look good. They, meaning Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, made him look good in that match, despite the fact that Kevin Owens lost. And he did take an ass whipping in that match, but he gave it just as good as he got. So it wasn't completely one-sided. So I can understand where you can make the return. I'm okay with Kevin Owens being put in this match only because it's not meant for KO to win the title. It's meant as a placeholder to continue giving Roman Reigns more steam.
But
now,
that's
at some point, well, listen, no one's gonna beat Roman Reigns right now.
Exactly. So why does he need to face anyone 5 times?
But here's the thing. Kevin Owens, as this kind of sounds like it's defying logic, right? But Kevin Owens actually looks better and can be more valuable in the long haul. Wrestling these matches with Roman Reigns, even if he loses every single one of them, Roman Reigns there's never going to be a point, I don't believe, there's never going to be a moment where Roman Reigns beats Kevin Owens like a Brock Lesnar John Cena match from years ago in that SummerSlam match where it was a rout. You're not going to see that because that's not the design of the match. And what's going to end up happening is that Kevin Owens is his stock and his equity will rise on the basis of these matches, even if he loses all of them. As long as he looks good in losing, he can be more valuable when he leaves the main event and goes down the card. What has to happen is whenever that transition happens, it has to be with somebody who's on the come up, and then that can be a more even matchup. If Owens finishes this story and then is he's spinning his wheels, then it feels like it's a waste. But honestly, I'm okay with this, even though it's not my ideal situation. And part of it is they don't have a baby face yet that's ready to take that next step in storyline. There's nobody ready. And what's happening is that it appears it appears that Apollo Crews they're doing some, I guess, teasing. Excuse me, they're teasing that Apollo Crews might be on his way to be turning full blown heel and becoming another protege in the Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, stable with Jey Uso, and I'm presuming Jimmy Uso whenever he's cleared to come back. So that gives a lot of layers and a lot of obstacles for a babyface like Kevin Owens. And if he loses that way, where he's expecting Roman Reigns, he's expecting Jey Uso, but for lack of a better term, he's expecting Heyman. If Apollo Crews turns and he flips and attacks Kevin Owens, that's now another obstacle, and be like, damn, how much more can this one man have to deal with in trying to overcome Roman Reigns? And even though we know he's going to lose, because no one's betting money on Kevin Owens winning this match, but if you create enough obstacles and you tell the right story, Kevin Owens looks like $1 million in defeat.
Yeah, when you tell a story like this, I think the babyface needs to win, but obviously Kevin Owens can't win, or we think he can't win, or he's not gonna win. So I would not tell a story like this. It's plain and simple. It could have ended. He looked great at TLC. You could have had a gauntlet match. You could have threw Shinsuke in this spot instead of having Adam Pearce win. You could have threw Shinsuke. Shinsuke could have won. You could have had Shinsuke against Roman.
I
get it. No one is ready, but Kevin Owens wasn't ready when he was given the first opportunity. But he made it work because he's Kevin Owens. We know there's greatness in him. So he's ready whenever they call his number. He was ready. Of
course there is, but I think the one reason why it doesn't make as much sense with Nakamura is just because Nakamura has been booked very poorly for a while. When he was in the tag team with Cesaro and Sami Zayn, it's not any of their fault. It's just a matter that them as a trio should have never happened, because they're three individual stars that each one of them should have their own individual, their own individual spotlight. I don't know whether Nakamura versus Roman Reigns, that's a match that I would like to see, and I think we're going to get that match eventually. It's just a matter that I don't think that with the gauntlet match, and considering the Nakamura prior to that match had probably been featured very little on SmackDown over the course of the last several months in any prominent position, it would not have made any sense to put Shinsuke in that spot. Although I'm completely confident that Shinsuke would deliver and have a great match, it would feel like a one and done situation, where a continuation of the story with Kevin Owens. If I had to choose between those two options, I would have probably chosen Kevin Owens, only because of the fact that, forget about the fact of the match, because I know that the X's and O's, both guys are going to deliver, so it doesn't matter. It's more that it feels like I can do more with Kevin Owens, and if I do want to introduce Apollo Crews as a heel, that's the best place to do it. Not necessarily flip on Big E. It's a matter of flip on Kevin Owens. And then once he turns full-blown heel, then you can tell that story with Big E. But there's a lot, there are a lot of nuanced layers there. Like I said, is it the most ideal situation? No, but I think under the circumstances, I'm okay with it. I really am.
Well, I guess and yeah, they just had a steel cage match and a TLC match, right? Those were the last two matches.
Did they have a cage match? I thought the cage match was with wasn't it with Jey Uso? Oh no, I'm sorry. No, you're right. They had the cage match on SmackDown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's.
I get it. I'm just saying. I kind of don't. If the babyface or the person who doesn't have the title is gonna come out victorious at the end of it, okay, then we can have a long 5-match story that 3 months, whatever. Okay, let's go. I just feel it's like there's no payoff.
I don't think that the payoff is meant for. How can I say? I don't think that the payoff is meant for Kevin Owens. I've said this before that I think that Big E is going to be the guy that's going to win the Royal Rumble. Um, and I have a feeling that in this situation, it may be a matter that if there is going to be a babyface that's going to triumph, it might be E. Might be. I'm not totally confident yet to say that. I feel confident enough to put my money on him to win the Royal Rumble, but I don't necessarily know if I'm ready to uh, say that, pencil it down for April, April 10th or 11th that Big E is going to be the WWE champion or the Universal champion, at the end of WrestleMania, because Roman Reigns has been so great as the champion that I don't know if I want to see somebody beat him right now.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with him holding it as long as he wants. But if he's just gonna, I'd rather him have short feuds. Even if if they don't have an opponent that's ready, line them up, let them keep knocking them down, and when you have somebody that's ready, that's when you have a meaningful long feud.
Yeah, we'll move on because we will be going back and forth on this for a long
All right,
time.
WrestleMania 37 will take place April 10th and 11th in Tampa Bay at Raymond James Stadium. WrestleMania 38 will make its way to Arlington, Dallas for WrestleMania 38 on April 3rd, 2022. And then WrestleMania goes Hollywood for WrestleMania 39, 2023.
April 2nd, 2023 in Los Angeles, California.
Yep.
Um,
Excited?
Yes, I am. Let's put it like this. I think that for the city of Tampa, it's nice that the WWE is essentially doing a make good and trying to get WrestleMania in Tampa, because I think that I know that this year WrestleMania was scheduled to be in Los Angeles, and I think that with the COVID restrictions there going on in LA, because they're like the epicenter of the COVID issue right now, there's literally next to no way that they would have been able to run WrestleMania in any venue in California, much less the big football stadium there in Los Angeles. That just wasn't going to work. I'm a little, I guess for me, I'm a little, I don't want to say upset. Upset's not the right word, but I guess I'm alarmed at the fact that WWE is going back to Arlington 6 years later. They did WrestleMania 32 in Arlington, and now they're going back in 2022. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm starting to get the impression that WWE they want WrestleMania in the big football arenas, and what's ended up happening is that there's only but so many places that they can go to. Meaning, they want it to be in warm weather cities, because obviously to come to the Northeast or anywhere where there's potential for inclement weather, whether it's cold or snow or rain or whatever, they don't they want to be able to mitigate those types of issues, but it really limits where they can go. And I guess for me, it just one of the fun things about WrestleMania is being able to see the different cities, knowing that it goes to different every year. It will go to a different part of the country, and it would be somewhere different. And I'm kind of getting the impression that now WWE has a very, they're starting to box themselves into very specific markets where they want to go to. Where they're going to be able to get nice weather. They got relationships with the stadiums, and it's easy for people to travel in. And it's going to kind of disqualify a lot of other host cities, particularly even, us here in the Northeast, from getting WrestleMania again, because they're not going to run it in Madison Square Garden. They're not going to run it at the Barclays Center. The MetLife Stadium out in New Jersey. It's a huge football stadium, but unfortunately it's an open air arena. And when WrestleMania usually runs March or April, the weather's still not great enough in the Northeast yet where you can kind of disqualify getting a cold day, unless they're going to run WrestleMania in May, and maybe, you might get lucky there, but it kind of seems like they're boxing themselves in a little bit in terms of the host cities. Because they're starting to repeat them a little too often for my flavor.
Yeah, I don't think this one is on purpose. I was just checking. If you eliminate the three current ones, the ones that were just announced, They did New Orleans twice.
Twice within 5 years.
Within 5 years, and they did MetLife twice within what's that, like 6-7 years? 6 years.
Yeah, so I'm
apart. But besides that, it's really far apart if there's anything.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is now is that over the last decade or so, I mean, you're starting to see that they're repeating the venues.
I think that the reason for these three, Florida is probably the most open state. You can pretty much have people in attendance if you want to,
and you got to be very careful because, man, please be careful.
But I think that's why they chose Florida. Then they chose Texas because it's another I don't give a fuck state. And just in case, for some reason, things are still bad, next year, they got Texas lined up. They know that there's a good chance that Texas is not shutting down. Then California, which is probably the one they really, really, really want to do, is the most, California is probably the most strict state since COVID, happened. So that's probably why they saved that one for last. I think it's smart. These are safe bets. These are things they already had planned. I think they will start doing more cities once things get back to normal.
I hope so. I mean,
it wasn't that. I mean, obviously they're gonna do. And then I feel like the New Orleans one, it landed on. There was some like a anniversary, 30th. No, there was some weird anniversary when I was there for the.
They did WrestleMania 30 and they did WrestleMania 34.
Yeah, so for WrestleMania 34, the city of New Orleans had some kind of anniversary, like the 300th year or something like that. It was something special going on. So that
had nothing to do with WWE. It just had to do with the city of New Orleans. And
but the city was gonna be basically lit anyway. So it was a good time to host something special. Literally the same week. When I was there, it was going on. So it was already a party in the city. So that's probably why they went there so soon, because they always have 3 or 4 spots like fighting for them to come.
Oh yeah. No,
so if they chose it, it was for usually for a good reason.
No, WrestleMania is a huge money grab for the host city, because WWE, it's not just the WrestleMania event. WWE is there for the better part of a week, if not longer. It's a huge thing. I guess a question is, a side question here. I know the WrestleMania this year is going to be, they're repeating the Saturday Sunday deal. They're doing it over 2 nights. Here's a question: Do you believe that probably moving forward, that WrestleMania should probably be a 2-night event?
I've been saying since New Japan did their show Wrestle Kingdom 2 nights for the first time, and I was like, this is brilliant. It's easier for the people at home. Now, if you're not getting 2 people to deal with that 70,000, 80,000 2 nights in a row, only the super, super duper hardcore fans. I'm pretty hardcore. I can go to WrestleMania and sit 7 hours and I'll be happy at the end of the night. Not as happy as if it were 4 hours, but
would you go for 2 nights in a row?
I cannot do 4-hour shows, 2 4-hour shows, or 2, because you're gonna get there early. You're gonna get there.
It's an 8-hour day probably for you, at least.
Yeah, even if they shorten when they shorten the show, so if it's a 3-hour show, you're still gonna be there 5 hours. So It's like 10 hours. It would be hard, and I'm not even worried about the easy part. Is when you're there watching. The hard part is getting into the venue, getting out of the venue, getting home from the venue.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
It's tough.
There's thousands of vehicles. I do not enjoy that. Definitely worth to do it once. But another thing is, it's easy now during COVID era to run these shows however you want to, like 2 nights in a row, whatever. If they wanted to do 3 nights in a row, I don't know how that works out under normal circumstances. I don't know. Can they get, like, is it even worth it? Will they make enough money? Like, because do they sell out Both shows.
My judging by how WWE has this scheduled, the response is no. Meaning, last year in 2020 they did WrestleMania over 2 nights because it was obviously recorded, and they figured, we could space this out over 2 nights and give you 2 3-hour shows instead of giving you 1 6-hour show. This year they're going to probably do the same thing, only because if they can only get 10% or 15% of that football stadium filled up, there's no, it's.
You might as well do it twice.
You might as well do it twice. You can get 2 gates out of it and get 2 different audiences.
So instead of maybe, I don't know, I think the max you can do in Florida is 15,000 in these stadiums. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Well, I don't know how many people would sit in Raymond James Stadium. Let's just presume it's 80,000, right? Let's presume it's 80,000.
Yeah, I think the number that the NFL teams
15% of that would be 12,000.
Yeah, so let's say between 12 and 15. Instead of doing it once, you do it twice. You get close to 30,000 seats sold. You're definitely getting these arenas these venues at a discounted price during COVID.
Oh, you're getting them for next to nothing. You're getting them for next to nothing, and I'm sure. And listen, for the WWE to be able to get 30,000 fans over 2 nights for them, that's a cash grab. Then no one else is going to haul that in today's wrestling environment because of the COVID thing. But obviously, I don't think that moving forward, I don't know if Wrestle Kingdom this year did it as an experiment because of the COVID deal that they did over 2 nights. Okay, so let's say that New Japan Pro Wrestling is able to sell the Tokyo Dome, which I don't know how many people, what's the max capacity in the Tokyo Dome, but let's say it's 30,000 people.
No, it's way more than that.
All right, so 40,000. If they're able to sell it out 2 nights in a row and get 80,000 fans over 2 nights.
They did 70 combined.
Okay, so let's say 35 each night. Let's just split it down the middle.
Uh-huh.
So you do 35,000 fans in each show. That's a huge haul. And here's the thing for New Japan, if they're able to do that over 2 nights and get 70,000 people, and the WWE can get close to 100 over 1 night at WrestleMania, then it kind of makes sense to, even if the show goes 8 hours long, to do it over 1 night and just kind of tell people.
There's also fans. There's also fans who don't get the tickets that they want, so they end up not going because they end up getting. Because for WrestleMania, if you're not on the field basically, or in the first section,
I got you. I understand.
I was pretty close, and I still was like I couldn't see. I'm like, oh my god. And we were in the first section. We were basically behind the field goal post.
I will say this. I think that the best seats to get for WrestleMania, even though I don't think any fan would be able to purchase these seats, are the box seats. There's probably no average fan would be able to purchase those, but that might be the best seat, quite frankly, is to get it in the box, because the way that I view it is that sometimes when you're at the ground level, field level, however you want to call it, I think that those are actually not the best seats. I think the best seats are the next section above, where you're elevated, slightly above, where you can see everything. You're kind of looking at it slightly overhead.
On a basketball arena, yes. In a football stadium, everything is so far. I'm blind. I need to be close. In basketball, if we're sitting in the first section and slightly elevated, it's beautiful. 10 rows back, but obviously wrestling, they put seats on the floor, so I don't have to sit on the floor. If I'm on the side, slightly elevated, that first section right there, 10 rows back, it's beautiful. It's so awesome. Yeah. I don't have to sit on, but they know that, so they charge appropriately for those good ass seats.
Of course. There's a premium between courtside, and then that's the next best after courtside. So
all things created equal, and assuming that it would be successful, I would prefer 2 nights to 1, and I would take that, every time, because I do think that WrestleMania needs more time. I even though right now I don't even know if they can fill 7 hours.
Well, no. In terms of filling 7 hours of time, trust me, they can do it. Whether we enjoy it or not is very subjective. But can they fill the 7 hours? The answer is absolutely.
Give me the pen. I'll do it.
Absolutely. I think that if the WWE were to attempt to make WrestleMania a permanent 2-night event, what the strategy would probably be for the WWE is they would have to go to a smaller venue, meaning instead of going to the big football stadiums that can sit 100,000 people, you may want to go to the baseball stadiums that probably fit 50 or 60,000 max.
And
And then you can fill that up twice, and you can actually make more money doing it that way.
To me, it looks cooler when they do I love when they do the baseball, because it's so unique.
Yeah, I enjoyed when they did the Royal Rumble over in Houston, and when they did the WrestleMania 19 in Safeco Field in Seattle.
It was awesome.
Those looked really, really cool.
It looked so cool.
Yes, they did.
All right, let's move on to Saturday. Hard to Kill. Right, that was on Saturday.
Yeah, boy, oh boy.
We'll just go through it quickly.
Sure.
You had on the countdown show. You had Brian Myers and Josh Alexander. This was, for me, I thought it was a nice little technical, clean. You know, Brian Myers is being used very nicely. Every week, he's on the show. He picks a fight with somebody, and they go, let's take it to the ring. They go to the ring. They have a nice, clean match. Very nice technical match.
Yes.
And that's a perfect way to use him, because I'm sure a lot of people don't know this because he was never used. He's a good worker. This dude is very, very solid.
Yes, he is. He's fantastic.
He can have good matches with just about anyone. So,
I mean, listen, when I look at a guy like Brian Myers, or for, you know, those fans of WWE, Kurt Hawkins, he's actually, you know, and I really admire what he's done, because when you saw him in the WWE, you know, yes, he was always presented as it's kind of like a comedy, and his whole gimmick is how many matches can he lose in a row. I think I think they had some gimmick where it was almost at 200 matches before him and Zack Ryder won the tag team titles at the WrestleMania pre-show when it was in New York. But I like what I see out of Brian Myers. He looks different. You know, he went from wearing the orange and blue of the Mets, you know, representing the Mets, to like wearing all black. He, you know, his promos are good. His matches make sense. Everything is good. I like Josh Alexander. I think for him, you know, it's a matter that when he was in the North with Ethan Page, he was going to be more prominently featured because the North were a fantastic team. And I think because Ethan Page being the star, you put the spotlight on Ethan Page, and Josh Alexander gets the residual of that. And he's a fantastic wrestler too. Don't get me wrong. It's just a matter that from a personality perspective, Ethan Page was the star of that team. And now that Alexander's going to be on his own, he has to, you know, there's going to be a little bit of a period with him where you're going to have to ingratiate him as a singles. And I think that that's going to be successful. The match was good. Everything. I have no problem with that match. I thought it was actually very good.
Yeah, Alexander is good. I actually think both he and Ethan Page need a little change. You know, they need to adjust because they're not the North anymore. You can't do the same thing. You got to switch it up a little bit. Find something, you know, unique to you that has nothing to do with the North. And, you know, continue to level up, which is always good to see in wrestling when people evolve and they get a little bit better and they add something here, something there. These small changes that add up, and then in a year, it all comes together.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, for Ethan Page, he's going to have Ethan Page, you know, he's going to have a new employer because he's no longer working for Impact Wrestling. So on the basis of that alone, he has a better shot of being able to, quote unquote, learn a new hold because he's going elsewhere versus Josh Alexander staying at Impact. So this is where the challenge is for him, because he's been prominently featured for so long in that tag team that now putting him on his own, knowing, at least for my flavor, that Ethan Page is the star of the team, Now it's a matter of like, how do you ingratiate him as a single to where he can stand on his own 2 feet? Talent notwithstanding, it's a matter of presentation.
All right. You had the match between Crazy Steve and Rosemary, Decay, which was one of my favorite little groups back in the day when they were together with Abyss. Versus Caleb with a K.
Caleb with a K. Don't shortchange him on his name.
Neil Dashwood. I almost forgot that Caleb was a wrestler.
Well, that means he's doing an excellent job with his gimmick.
I haven't seen him wrestle in so long. I think he did like a nice little drop kick. I was like, oh shit, I forgot this guy could wrestle.
I mean, this match was, listen, this match was what it was, right? The story of this match is primarily based around the story with Tenille Dashwood and Rosemary. And I say this with all due respect, Tenille Dashwood has done a really, really great job after leaving WWE in that silly, goofy Emma character, and has been able to develop this persona in the indies and, you know, within Ring of Honor and now Impact Wrestling. The thing is that, and I say this with all due respect, I don't want to come across like I'm being disrespectful to Rosemary, but it almost seems like you can't find something better for Tenille Dashwood. Like, you can't find, you know, and I say this with all due respect because it's like when I look at Rosemary, it's just like she's been playing the same gimmick in Impact Wrestling because she's never taken it anywhere else, meaning in the United States that we've seen it in any other U.S. promotion. It's always been an Impact. And the match was there. It's kind of like the match was just there. It wasn't great. It didn't suck. It just was. And you know, when I look at Caleb with a K, and I see him wrestling, it all because I have enough knowledge of him to know that he's always been positioned as Tenille Dashwood's, you know, like assistant, you know, like her flunky.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm figuring that if you're a flunky, right, even if you're a wrestler, if you're positioned as a flunky, when you're working with Crazy Steve primarily, you should not be wrestling Steve in a way that makes you look like a legit wrestler. It's almost like you should wrestle the way that your gimmick is presented. Meaning that when you do it, just think of the way that Rebel wrestles in AEW. Whenever she gets offensive moves, she looks shocked when she does it. Even though Rebel is a wrestler and she knows how to do the moves, but her gimmick informs her on how she's going to wrestle in the ring. So I think that Caleb, even though Caleb has a very similar role in Impact with Tenille Dashwood, he's almost wrestling like, you know, like he wrestles every day, you know, every show. It's kind of like, dude, it seems misinformed. With Decay, you know, Crazy Steve is actually a very good wrestler with his gimmick notwithstanding. It's just a matter that sometimes I look at it and I'm like, you're too good of a wrestler for the gimmick. It almost seems like you should probably do a little less of the wrestling and a little more of the brawling because it kind of informs to the gimmick a little bit more. You can use the wrestling. I'm not saying not to use it, but it just almost seemed like the way that they work the match, they're working the match as if they're the only person who's really working their gimmick, for lack of a better term, in their education of wrestling in the ring are the women. Because Rosemary works to her gimmick and Tenille Dashwood works to her gimmick. The two guys did not. So that's the reason why I'm kind of like, okay, that's why I'm saying that the match was okay, but it was just there for me.
All right. You had Violent by Design, which is Diener with a new gimmick. Eric Young.
What's up with those faces he makes?
I don't know.
He always looks. It's like that face never changes. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm cutting you.
I like the direction they're going with him because he had no chance under his former gimmick. If they think he's has something to offer. What?
No, I was gonna say you didn't tell us who was wrestling the match. You have
Oh, yeah.
so you have Eric Young, Cody Deaner, and who's the big guy?
Joe Doring
Joe Doring.
versus Cousin Jake, Rhino, and Tommy Dreamer.
Okay.
And Violent by Design got the victory, which makes sense. Of course, you got Rhino and Tommy Dreamer who are there to put guys over, and then between Diener and Cousin Jake, even though Cousin Jake is a big boy.
Oh yes, he is.
He's a big boy.
He's a big boy.
So let's see if it's actually the best they've both looked. Even though Diener has a lot of work to do to get used to his heel, kind of like when Bayley first started. It's like he seems uncomfortable playing his character. For now,
I don't think he seems uncomfortable. I just think that he's overdoing it.
Yeah, he's not doing it as good as he possibly can.
It's not natural to him right now.
Yeah, he has to get to me. Well, in wrestling, when something doesn't look natural for me, is they're not either comfortable yet, or they're not used to it, or something is off. So he has to figure it out. It's gonna take him some time, but he's with the right person because Eric Young is a chameleon for me. So I think he can definitely guide him and get him to where he needs to be.
I agree. I think that the pairing of Violent by Design, I think that the trio works. The trio works because obviously Eric Young is he's the leader of the group. He's the experienced veteran guy there. The audience, the Impact Wrestling audience has a long-standing relationship with him, so you don't have to do much in educating the audience about him. Cody Deaner, I remember when him and Cousin Jake were the tag team, and yeah, you were right. They had no shot in hell getting over as a pair. They needed to break them up. Joe Doring, I know that Matt Striker, God bless him. I mean, and listen, shout out to Matt Striker and D'Lo Brown, because I think that they are a huge upgrade in the commentary booth. This is no disrespect to Josh Matthews and Madison Rain, but they needed new voices. I thought
I don't think they're an upgrade, but I think it was time. Josh Matthews was there for a long time, and with wrestling, you get tired of it. It's like 10 years straight. It's like it's enough.
I will say I loved D'Lo Brown, and I enjoy Striker up to a point, and I don't want to take away from this match, but it's a matter that when Striker does his commentary, I love his enthusiasm and I love his exuberance. The thing that I don't like is that he becomes too much of a fan in terms of how he speaks and how he communicates, and doesn't have enough temperance to have that exuberance and enthusiasm of a fan, but have the professional announcer medium in between, that you can have the two levels. I think Mauro Ranallo was the best example of that, of having the exuberance and the excitement and of that the love of every fan, but that professional announcer anchor to keep it together. And then he's able to do all those great things. That's my only criticism with Striker, and there was a lot of things that angered me about his announcing, but I'll leave it at that as like a general rule of thumb with him. To this match, I thought that the heel trio works. The babyface trio I'm okay with, because you're right. Rhino and Dreamer are there to put people over, and Cousin Jake is there to continue his story with Diener. The problem is that this match, the construct of the match was lousy. If you're having a pay-per-view where one of your semi-main event is basically a no holds barred, anything goes, street fight with your two quote unquote hardcore guys, with Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan, there is no reason to have any other match on this show that even slightly resembles that. There is no reason for this match to have been. They called it Some they call it like
old school
old
rules.
school. What the hell does old school mean?
Every Tommy Dreamer match is old school rules.
That's you know what that is? That's bullshit hardcore stuff. Just he can't call it ECW rules because they can't call it that. Old school is, give me a break. What does that mean? That it basically was a battle royal that it looks sloppy for the most part. So many things that could have made more sense in the construct of an actual, what I don't want to call it a traditional 6-man tag match, but in that construct where you could do some of those things, minus the thumbtacks and the chairs and all that other crap, but you can be able to tell those stories and then get the heels over, and essentially not watered down. Because if the second match is essentially a pseudo hardcore battle royal, then when the semi-main event later on has the hardcore match, it waters it down. Whether it's intended to do so or not, that's what it ends up doing. I think this match would have been much better if it would have been a traditional 6-man tag match and tell the stories there, even if they would have done some of the roughhouse stuff when the match gets out of control. But having it be essentially a tornado 6-man tag match, no good. It was sloppy and it looked bad. Didn't get the point across. And here's the thing, Eric Young got the win. I'm not, in all honesty, if Eric Young is going to be the guy that's going to be the featured player in the trio, and it's not, because you figure it would have been Joe Doring, right? Because the commentators spend so much time talking about him and how he spent 20 years in Japan and now he's finally coming to the United States, and they were talking about how big and how strong and how tough he is. You figure he would have been the guy to get the win. And yet Eric Young got the win. I didn't think that made sense either. Eric Young is the anchor of the group, but he's not supposed to be the featured guy. It's meant to elevate the others. I think that having Eric Young get the win was not the right thing.
All right. Then there was Impact Knockouts Tag Team title match. They're reintroducing the Knockouts Tag Team titles. Fire and Flavor defeated Havoc and Nevaeh. I mean, I had a really good feeling that Fire and Flavor, there's Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan, I had a feeling they were going to win when the tournament started. They're the only true tag team. They've been very entertaining. When they've been given opportunities, they've done a good job. And I kind of thought that if I were going to pick who to put the belts on, I would have put it on them as well. As soon as the match was over, though, I instantly was like, okay, I would love to see, because when I think of the tag team titles in Impact, I think of, remember Mexican America?
Yes.
With Rosita
and Sarita.
Which one is Zelina Vega?
The former Zelina Vega.
Former Zelina Vega. Now I think she'll go as Cia Trinidad. And Sarah Stock. I forgot her name it's Rosita, right? She was Rosita or
no, she was Sarita.
She was Sarita.
Rosita was the former Zelina Vega.
She was Sarita. I remember when I first saw Sarita in TNA back in the day, I thought she was so good. So good. I was like, yo, this girl is awesome. She had it all down. Down.
I saw her wrestle as Dark Angel in Mexico prior to her coming to the US. And she was great. I think that when she was in TNA, although she had good matches, for some reason it wasn't quite as good as the one she had in Mexico. And I think it may have been a mix of probably having lesser experienced girls that she's working with, so you got to slow down slightly. And maybe the fact that when you're working for a television show, it's always intelligent to slow down so that people can process things. So yeah, I do remember Mexican America. They were a good team, even though I think that in that case, you can clearly tell that Thea Trinidad at that point in her career was very, very green, and Sarah Stock was, I don't want to say she was hand-holding her, but she was certainly leading. And that was, it's a time like if you could take Sarah Stock in 2005 and take Thea Trinidad in 2021 and put them together, man, you'd have yourself a terrific team.
Based on what,
but
I don't know, how old is Sarah?
Sarah Stock, I believe, is early 40s.
She is 41. Oh, come on. She can, as long as she doesn't have any injuries, I'm pretty sure.
But Sarah Stock, hasn't wrestled in a long time, and I know that she's had, I think, some knee and back issues. So you're certainly not going to get, you're certainly not getting the same person you got back in.
She was so good.
2010.
She was so good. I am confident that depending on who she works with, I'm pretty sure she can get a nice run, one little run. Give me one run.
Well,
just one pay-per-view match. Show up on an Impact. We're the best tag team champions of all time. Give me one match. They can lose. They can go home. Zelina can stay, or Thea could stay for a year if she wants to go to AEW or do whatever. That's fine. I just want one little run. Just because she was literally my favorite female.
I'll tell you.
Up until Gail just got out of control and Gail started having matches better than the guys, then Gail had to become my favorite. But
see, that's the one thing that gets me with Gail Kim. I know that Gail, and listen, props to Gail Kim. She's fantastic. She married well. She doesn't have to wrestle anymore. I know that she's still very much involved with Impact Wrestling, but part of me really figures that if there's anybody that should be able to step into the ring to lend credibility, it would be her. So I'm a little surprised that I don't see her wrestling that often anymore. I know that she retired, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago at this point. She wrestled on Impact and lost and retired. But going to the match, I don't know enough about these four women as teams. I've seen Kiera Hogan wrestle as a single. I've seen a little bit of Tasha Steelz as a single. I've seen some of Jessica Havoc, and with Nevaeh, I was introduced to Nevaeh on Impact Wrestling. My thing about this match is when I saw it, I looked at it and I was like, visually, it seems like Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz are the baby faces. Nevaeh and Jessica Havoc are the heels.
They are.
However, the way this match was laid out, it made Jessica Havoc and Nevaeh the baby faces.
Well, that's not good.
They worked. Listen, here's the issue when you're working. They did everything. Listen, everything in this match was ass backwards. Everything in this match was ass backwards. Everything.
Well, could it be because they're so much smaller? They had to kind of work more heelish.
Here's the problem. It's not. See, the thing is that I don't buy that. That's absolute nonsense. I don't buy that for a second.
Just asking, man. Just asking.
The problem is with this match. The way that this match works. If you want to see the example of a good big man versus little man tag team match, reference the Rockers versus Big Boss Man and Akeem at WrestleMania 5, April 2nd, 1989. Reference that match. That is a match that, although it was a match for the sake of a match, but I enjoyed it, and still to this day, I still watch that match and it still gives me a smile when I watch it, because they understood the dynamic of what it's supposed to be. If Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz, Fire and Flavor are the baby faces, what they need to do is that you need to work on, one of these girls. It would preferably probably be Nevaeh because she's the smaller one. So you could be able to do more believable double team stuff to her. Then at that point, what you do is that you work on her for the first few minutes of the match. And then after that, eventually you gotta, the smaller wrestler has to come to the larger one. The larger one catches them, and then the larger one's double team. Get the smaller person down. And then you beat on her. The tag team partner has to come in and save her on occasion. And obviously whoever's the babyface in peril has to be able to stay down. You got to sell but not die. The problem is that the baby faces were double teaming on Jessica Havoc. They had her down for like 8 minutes, just beating her, double teaming her, doing all this stuff behind the referee's back. And I'm like, who's the baby face and who's the heel? Then when Jessica Havoc, who literally outweighs both of those girls by probably 100 pounds, finally gets them both down, and Nevaeh's doing, like the whole babyface hot tag. And I'm like, what the hell am I watching? Nevaeh comes in and does this whole babyface comeback, hot tag, beats both of the little girls and just beats them up. And I'm like, what the hell am I watching? Who constructed this match? It made no sense. Nothing. Then they just do a bunch of moves to each other. The referee, God bless you guys. Listen, these referees now in modern wrestling and tag team matches, they're just kind of taking the position of, we're not going to count. We're just going to let all four of them wrestle, let them get their shit in. We're not even going to try to control the match. It buries the referee. It just completely destroys the concept of a tag team match. And here's the thing: if you're gonna have tag team matches with inexperienced talent that don't know how to do it right, there has to be somebody there to keep control of the match, and that's what the referee's there for. Even if it's just conceptually, and it's not the legit thing that the ref's out there to do. But you can't have this, and this is like in every single tag team match on this show. It's just constant double, triple teams, however much, referees watching it happen, not even counting, doing nothing about it, not trying to stop it, not disqualifying anybody, not doing jack squat. They're just sitting there watching it. At that point, I'm like, just get out of the ring. Get out of the ring. You're useless in this scenario. But anyway, the heels make a mistake. Baby faces hit their finish. They beat Nevaeh. And I just thought to myself, like, yeah, listen, I'm okay with them winning the titles, right? I'm okay with that. I didn't have a dog in the fight, but I just watched the match and I thought this whole thing was ass backwards. It made no sense. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, if you made Nevaeh and Jessica Havoc look bad in defeat, meaning that you had two girls who are a third of their size combined weight, and they basically were able to outspeed them, out wrestle them, outthink them, in certain cases out muscle them, even though it was the two of them doing it all the time. They had to do it as a unit. Just like, it was just bad. It was just really, really bad. It made no sense. The Fire and Flavor don't look like baby faces. Nevaeh and Jessica Havoc don't look like heels. They just look like four women who are just there. And they can just be interchangeable at any time. And if that's the purpose of it, then whoever's booking it just doesn't know what the hell they're doing. Sorry.
All right. We had a nice little surprise here. So Matt Cardona made his debut. I don't know if I would have had a match here though. I think I would have preferred some sort of run-in, some physicality, and get out of here.
Nope.
I don't think I would have had a match. That's just my take. I mean, nothing happened. They came out. They had a 2-minute match, and Madman Fulton got involved, and then they were out of there. So it's yeah.
This entire segment, the entire segment, shouldn't have even been on this show. Not at all. Not at all. Ace Austin, who I think is one of the better talents, one of the better young talents that Impact Wrestling has. And Madman Fulton, he looks great because when I see the two of them, it reminds me of Shawn Michaels and Diesel. Even though Madman Fulton, looks like a mix between, he looked like one of the lost cousins of the Wyatt family with the Lance Archer haircut, and
Madman Fulton was in Sanity.
Okay, I can believe that.
You remember that?
He
was
was probably in the
original
early.
guy.
He was in. Okay. I think that he was the original member, and then when he bounced, that's when they put Killian Dane. Correct?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I remember that.
I completely, when I saw Madman, when he was reintroduced in Impact, completely forgot that was him.
Well, that tells you the impact that he had on NXT when he was a member of Sanity. But anyway, the whole segment, Ace Austin comes out and he bitches and moans about not being on the pay-per-view and having to sit on the pre-show panel. Good promo. Nothing wrong with Ace Austin's promo. Scott D'Amore comes out and basically says, hey, I hear you, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to be part of the X Division title match, but, I have a surprise for you, and he's always ready. That's Cardona's gimmick now. He's always ready. Listen, Cardona looks great. All right, let me give all the Matt Cardona compliments. The guy looks like $1 million. Great looking guy, tremendous physique. Here's my issue with Matt Cardona. He's still Zack fucking Ryder. Everything about him is Zack Ryder. Same haircut, same beard, the trunks, everything about his presentation, the wrist tape, the boots, the knee pad, every single thing about him is still Zack Ryder. Nothing has changed about him. Nothing. Not his promo, not his match, not his, not a single new move, not a single different style set in the ring, nothing. And what ends up happening is when you saw Cardona next to Ace Austin, Cardona made Ace Austin look like a child standing next to him, which is bad. Because Ace Austin, probably in most situations, you might think he's 5'10". He looked like he was 5'5" standing next to Cardona. It looked really bad. This whole segment could have been done on Impact Wrestling television. It made no sense to put this on pay-per-view. It's just a way to fill time.
I don't think they were trying to fill time. I think they were trying to have a nice surprise.
Listen, I know that their intent is not to fill time. It's the execution of it. That's how it came across. Like, hey, we're just here. We need to fill a 10-minute gap. Here it is. Let's do this. I didn't like it. It made Ace Austin look horrible. Made him look absolutely terrible. Ace Austin did not look good at all at this. Madman Fulton, whatever. I mean, Madman Fulton is just there. He looks good as the big man enforcer, but I don't see him knowing how to play that role really well. Because the fact is that he's bumping around for Cardona, and if anything else, Cardona should be able to smack Ace Austin around if that's going to be the case, and then Madman Fulton puts him down. Cardona should not be able to fend both of those guys off. He just shouldn't be able to do it. And he did. And Ace Austin is a guy who's a star. With all due respect to Matt Cardona, Cardona doesn't add, he's not a guy that's going to add anything to Impact right now more so than Ace Austin can. Because Ace Austin is a guy who's been presented as such over the last year or so. He's been presented as a big deal in Impact Wrestling. And there's a lot of potential with him. A guy like Cardona, again, I say this with all due respect, I like him, but if he only knows how to be Zack Ryder, then go back to the WWE and be Zack Ryder. It's okay. I don't want you to be Matt Cardona, and the only difference between Matt Cardona and Zack Ryder is that instead of seeing ZR on your label, it says MC. I want something different from Cardona, and I haven't seen it. I didn't see it in AEW. I didn't see it here on Impact. And he's a tremendous talent because Lord only knows that man works incredibly hard to look the way he does. And he really is a great-looking, disciplined athlete. But there's something that isn't there. And again, I don't want to see Zack Ryder anymore. Because if I want to see Zack Ryder, go back to the WWE. If you're going to be Matt Cardona, give me something different. I haven't seen it yet. That's my big criticism. And if you're gonna do something with Ace Austin has to look good, even if he's running. He has to look good. He looked terrible at the end of the segment.
I mean, I'm okay with what Cardona's doing. I do think he needs to change his move setup because it doesn't fit him anymore. We forget that when he started, he was a baby. He was, probably less than 20 years old, and he was a smaller guy. He was thin, and the move set fit him perfectly back then. He's much bigger now. He's probably 225, but a super muscular 225. On television, he looks 250.
I think he's more than 225. He might be closer to 240.
Big guy. He could be 240. But for some reason, wrestlers, they have no body fat on them, and they weigh a little bit. Like, they're twice my size, and I outweigh them by 50 pounds. Some of these guys. So it's like it doesn't make any sense. But
listen, Cardona looks great. It's just a matter that I get frustrated because everything that I've seen him do outside of the WWE, and yes, it's a small sample size, but
he needs to evolve.
But exactly, and the thing about it is for Matt, and listen, I'm not a professional wrestler, so I'm not, I'm not the guy to give him any advice. But if he were to listen, I would say, Matt, do yourself a favor, go work somewhere where nobody's going to see you, meaning you're not going to be on television, you're not going to be exposed to any kind of an audience, and develop a different personality, develop something different, and that it evolves. You're not going to it's going to be very difficult to do it on television because of the fact that you might have one particular mindset, and it might be a matter that you need to go somewhere where the little red light isn't on, and that you can perform just for the people in that room, and then kind of learn to be Matt Cardona, the professional wrestler, and not, Matt Cardona playing Zack Ryder. You understand? That would just be my piece of advice to him, which is probably not worth much, to be honest. But
X Division title, you have Manic defeating Chris Bay and Rohit Raju. You know what I hate? TJP, who I'm not a fan of as a person, he's such a good he's so good. He's so smooth. He's so technically sound. I kind of want him to suck, but he's really good. He's really, really smooth. Like, everything looks so good. I'm like, damn. Like, this guy's killing it.
Yeah, I mean,
from what I saw, I thought his performance was really, really impressive.
Well, this is a perfect example of what I'm slowly beginning to think is becoming the indie style. What I mean by that is this very fast-paced, type wrestling match. I like TJP in the ring. My issue with this is just and I'll touch on Rohit and Chris Bay. I promise I will, because I have good things to say about both of those guys. With TJP, technically in the ring, the guy's proficient and he's fantastic, right? The thing that I don't like is that the way that Rohit Raju has presented this storyline about wanting to unmask him and prove that Manic is TJP, what Impact Wrestling is doing is that they're tongue-in-cheeking this and making something that could be, somewhat serious in the context of the title. They're making it a joke. TJP, it's almost like in no way, shape, or form is he trying to hide. Manic is trying to hide the fact that he's TJP. TJP literally has, he's just a poster boy of all these different, tattoos all over his arms. It's very unique to him. You figure that as Manic, he would cover it up so that you can at least have some kind of perception that says, hey, Manic and TJP, you could try to explain that they're two different people.
Well, they tried to explain it today. And the explanation is basically everyone is basically in on it. And Rohit Raju's being a dick, so they're just management is like, yeah, we know it's him.
But here's the thing, right? listen, I've been very high on Rohit Raju over the last several months watching on Impact. I'm like, he's one of the few people that I actually enjoy watching on Impact. Meaning he looks good, he works well to his character, and all the things that he does in his promos and everything, he's being serious in the context of his character. He's being a swarmy heel, and in no way, shape, or form is he trying to tongue in cheek it or wink at the crowd or anything like that. He is being himself. When you have somebody, if TNA management now tonight said like, yeah, we've always known it was TJP. So then the whole condition that they told the story prior to the match was between Chris Bay and Rohit. So let's just say that conversation is, hey, if you can prove to TNA management that Manic is indeed TJP, then you can have a case for having, for getting the belt back and having it taken away from TJP. So they teased that for several weeks. They had the match. Then they, I know that what they were trying to do was, do a little callback to the whole, Jushin Liger when they took the mask off of him and he went from Jushin Liger to Kishin Liger. And I'm like, that was the shit in the context of this match, because with all due respect to TJP, to Chris Bay, and to Rohit Raju, none of them are even remotely close as of, what day is today? January 20th, 2021. None of them were even remotely close to being at Liger's level. And when they took the mask off of Liger, that was a tremendously huge deal when it was done. I understand what they were trying to do, but it was a moment in the match that was just wasted because they were just running the match so quickly that it was just a spot. It was just a spot. Nothing more, nothing less. They're trying to build to it, but then it's just like, all right, well, we all know that it's TJP, so who cares? What they probably should have done is just have nothing on his face and just be like, yeah, I'm TJP. All right, boom, match continues. Because then it gives more credence to what TNA management, said this week. Like, yeah, we always knew it was TJP. So what? Get over it. It's stupid. Chris Bay is a guy that I think that he has a tremendous look, very talented guy. I guess for me, it's like when I look at his gimmick, and it's it's not a knock on him but when I see a lot of the African American wrestlers now, WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, they all seem to be very similar. I think with the exception of the New Day because of the way the New Day presents themselves, but it just kind of seems like everybody's with the hip hop music, the bling, they all kind of look the same. And with Chris Bay, it almost looks like he kind of has a bit of Isaiah Swerve Scott. He's got a bit of Kofi Kingston, but it's kind of like, and I do see some of him, but it's just like the package. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not in love with the package, of Chris Bay, the way that he's presented, but he's a fantastic talent. The things that he does in the ring, he does all this crazy, really, really athletic stuff. He's got great promo skills. He got a lot of charisma, and the thing is for only being a wrestler for 5 years, he's well on his way. He's going to be a guy that's going to do a lot of great things. It's just a matter that with this match, you have all three of these guys. And although Rohit was working to try to slow the match down somewhat, the match was just so fast that very little registers. And I got completely pissed off when I see that they do 35 different finishing moves that should have ended the match, and then TJP, beats Rohit with a freaking schoolboy roll-up. It's just, it's so anticlimactic, and it's just like, dude, no. Just no. It was what it was. I mean, all three guys individually have a lot of good to them. The whole Manic storyline, just get rid of it. They could, that was completely botched. And again, these matches are just way, way too fast. Slow them down. Tell a story. Let things register. They just move way too quick.
I'm okay with that match being fast. I think the X Division needs to be different than everything else, and nothing makes it different. And I don't want it to be a weight limit that makes it different.
But what I mean is that let things register. I'm not talking about that. Slow the match down to a crawl and work like the big guys. It's more like let things register. You don't have to get every move that you know in. Not everything needs to be included in every match. And this, they just felt like they just put in so many things in here that I'm like, okay, if that's not going to finish the match, then why do it? Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And that's really what the point is just be more judicious with the things they do in the ring.
We had Deonna Purrazzo versus Taya Valkyrie, and Deonna Purrazzo took care of business and won the match. So she's still your Impact Knockouts champion.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, and to me, she's really good.
Yes, she is.
Really, really good. I don't know how this couldn't work in WWE, but since she's gotten an Impact, everything is clicking. She's doing a really, really good job. I feel like she gets nervous when she speaks. That's the only thing that I noticed. Like her voice is shaky. I don't know if that's just how she speaks.
No, I think that there's some nervousness there.
Yeah, but that's fine. That'll go away with reps. But her in ring, she calls herself the best technical wrestler. I'm starting to believe it.
Well, I love her. I love the name, the Virtuosa. I love that. It's so beautiful and classy. I love it. I would have really loved this match, but they goofed it up in the beginning. So Taya Valkyrie comes out with Crazy Steve and Rosemary, and then you have Deonna Purrazzo comes out with Kimberly and with Susie, Su Yin, whatever name she's going by this week. Susan, sure, whatever. Now, in a match like this, I understand why Impact would, and maybe even the participants would want to have the 4 minions out there, and I'm using the word minions because they serve the role and a purpose in the storytelling leading up to the match. However, the way that they were used in the body of this match was the drizzling shit. It ended up almost ruining this match. So you have a point where the people, the obviously Crazy Steve couldn't do anything. He just stood there just looking stupid. So Rosemary, Kimberly, and Susan are openly interfering, hitting the participants in the match after the bell had already rung, and the referee's doing nothing about it. I wanted to reach my hand over to the TV, grab the ref by the collar, and slap him. I was like, what the hell are you out there to do? They're openly interfering. You know what that's called, brother? A disqualification. Do not discredit yourself. I don't know the referee's name, but damn it, that was just the shit. So Crazy Steve does some stupid spot where he ends up bumping the referee, and then the referee all of a sudden grows a spine and throws all of them out of ringside. I'd be like, dude, you should have done that at the beginning of the match. Because if Deonna Purrazzo is presented as the best technical wrestler in the Impact Women's division, and Taya Valkyrie is being positioned as the best opponent for her, and the longest reigning Knockouts champion, blah, 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 and she's being presented as the best opposition to her, you should respect both of these women enough to actually let them do their thing in the ring, independent of all other parties involved. So the first 3 minutes of the match was the drizzling shits. It took me about 2 or 3 minutes afterwards to calm down enough to actually start focusing on the match and not want to punch my TV because it was that bad. The match was good. They told the story. Deonna Purrazzo worked on the arm, worked on the leg, broke down Taya. Taya was working from underneath the entire time. And the fact that Deonna Purrazzo made her tap, that's the correct thing to do, because you are emphatically making a statement that Deonna Purrazzo is the top woman in the Impact Women's roster. She's the champion. She's got the hardware to show it. So that was done well. It's the beginning of the match that was the shits. And I'm like, you don't do that. You just don't. Have enough respect for those talents to give them that opportunity. That was a huge platform for them. And the participation of the outside stuff didn't completely ruin the match, but it took it from like an 8 to a 6 for me, just based on that. Because it just completely, I'm like, why? Especially after we already saw Decay already earlier in the night. They already wrestled. And you could have easily told the other two, you could have done a backstage segment with Deonna Purrazzo and her group and have somebody tell them, you're barred from ringside. You got to do this alone. It's very, very simple. There's no real science to it. The execution was awful, at least in that part. The match in itself was pretty good. But
All right.
That stuff was awful.
We had that barbed wire massacre match, Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan. I imagine that it's over between them, but who knows?
It's never over. I'll never retire.
I mean, when you bash somebody's eye out with a baseball bat, it'll probably never truly be over. But
Man.
Eddie Edwards defeated Sami Callihan. No one got involved. He beat him right square in the middle, so I think it's over. I think Eddie needs to. I get it that Eddie needed a change. I think I've said this before, like probably 3 or 4 times. And I'm happy he found something, but he needs to move back towards the middle. He went too far in one direction. He was too vanilla before. Now he's too crazy. We got to move him back we got to find a nice, happy medium here. Continue to evolve. I'm not in love with this. I'm also not in love that he let himself get out of shape. I don't know. I don't know what happened there, but ever since he changed gimmicks, he got out of shape. That's weird. So hopefully he starts to get back in shape. And he polishes up the look a little bit.
He puts on a pair of wrestling trunks.
Yeah, or at least the long tights. Just wear long tights. I'm happy he came out with he wore red, right? He wore white and red instead of the green. I don't like that lime green. Not a fan of that. I don't think it looks cool. Throw some boots on, throw some long tights on, polish the look, and start to look more like a main eventer, because his work in the ring, he is a main event, talent for me with his in-ring work. But he has to change his look and move. Like I said, he went too far in the wrong direction. He definitely needed to change from his Wolves persona. It wasn't main event. He needed an edge, but he went too far.
The work was, but the gimmick wasn't. I get it.
Yeah. His work has always been top notch.
Here's the thing, right? I in general am not a fan of these hardcore matches, just because of the fact that I think that they're just, for the most part, they're gratuitous, they're stupid, and make no sense for the most part. I've said it before, I like Eddie Edwards. I always thought I'm not a fan of Sami Callihan's. Like, it's just, I'm sorry. I mean, when he was in NXT, he was just another guy. He comes in, he goes into the Indies. He does this Ohio versus everything stuff, and he's in Impact Wrestling, and he cuts a half decent promo, but all the stuff that he says, I don't believe anything he says. It's just like, I don't buy you for a second. If you were, and I say this with all due respect, I don't want to be disrespectful, but if he was the main event and he was the top guy, and I was like, okay, he's the guy that you're presenting on top, I'm not spending a dime for that. I probably wouldn't even invest my time to click the remote onto the channel and watch it in my living room. because I just don't see anything in Sami Callihan. And it comes across, but it's like I've watched enough of him to be like, I'm not a fan. I'm a fan of Eddie Edwards. You know, I do agree with you. Yes, he was very vanilla with the when he was one of the American Wolves, but I love the look. His work was always great. Now this new gimmick, I'm like, a guy like Eddie Edwards is like, dude, you can't. For you to go from being a potential main event star to then going to this whole hardcore gimmick, and you've done it for too long. I can understand where it was part of a storyline where maybe as the vanilla babyface, you keep losing, then you snap, then you go to this dark side, you do this for a little while, but there's got to be a redemption where, as you said it, you meet in the middle. Now for the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, maybe longer, he's been that guy. And I'm like, how do you go from presenting this Eddie Edwards, who has been the predominant presentation of him over the last several years on television, to now like, all right, well now let's backtrack him. You know, on Impact this week, he had something with Brian Myers, Brian Myers called him a backyarder. And the funny thing is that when I heard him say that, I was like, yeah, I kind of agree. The way that you've been working and presenting yourself, you do look like a backyarder, even though you're not. But it's a matter like, hey, let's see now if this is the beginning of getting him back in the middle, because I think that Eddie Edwards is a guy that could be a rock solid babyface main event talent on Impact Wrestling. But man, oh man alive, this match was, listen, this was what it was. It was just a match that's designed, for all the different silly spots, just table spots, bats, barbed wires, they had the one spot where I thought this was the dumbest shit in the world, where Eddie Edwards has the bat and Callahan has the kendo stick, and they know that they have each other's gimmicks, so they hand it over to each other, and then they could be just like, what the, oh golly. I was like, I just saw that, and I just screamed. I just screamed when I saw that, and I was like, please get, at that point, I actually started fast forwarding the match. I was like, I can't watch this shit anymore. I started fast forwarding it, fast forward for 3 minutes. All right, let me see, fast forward for 3 minutes, man. And because I was like, I can't watch this crap anymore. It's like, it just got to the point where it got so stupid, and I was like, all right, you guys are now, on top of the fact that this premise is already something that I don't like, but now you're almost feeling like you're kind of tongue-in-cheeking it. Screw you, we're done.
I don't think it was tongue-in-cheek. I think it was a little symbolic moment.
You could say, listen, the announcers are trying to say that they're trying to sell it as like a show of respect for the other. No, baloney.
No, not a show of respect. It was more like, give me my, Eddie wanted his weapon. This is my weapon that I've been fighting with for months. If not a year, probably. Sorry. Nope. All right, anyway, let's just move on.
Move on.
Main event, Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers in full Bullet Club gear. Don't know what that means. Don't know if they're going to get in trouble for that, or don't know if there's some secret.
That's called a lawsuit. That's called a potential lawsuit.
There's some secret deals under the table.
Oh my
God. Some
God.
stuff going on that we don't know about.
Yeah, I'd rather keep it that way. I'd rather not know.
Look, I know you may not be a fan, but people love the Biz Cliz.
Uh-huh.
Know what I'm saying? So It's a big deal.
Okay.
Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers defeat Chris Sabin, Moose, and Rich Swann. Kenny Omega pins Rich Swann. This is going to obviously set up a match between them for the Impact title. And Moose, who filled in for Alex Shelley, had a awesome MVP performance. And like I've told you, I'm sure you remember when I told you he had that match with EC3.
Yes, sir, you did.
And the whole purpose of that match was to make Moose look like a star. He has not looked back since. He's looked amazing consistently. And this was, to me, a star-making performance. If you didn't believe in him or you weren't sure about him, what's crazy is in that little sample, because it's a 3-on-3. You can't. There's only so much time and room for you to do your stuff.
They had 30 minutes, man. They had they wrestled for 30 minutes. They had plenty.
Yeah, no.
They had ample time to tell whatever they wanted.
It's still not like going out there for 20 minutes in a one-on-one main event match. But the way it was, every time Moose was given a moment, I felt like it was beautifully done. It was like you just saw the picture and it was like in your mind, in your head. For me, every moment he was given in the match to shine, I thought he knocked it way out of the park.
Correct.
So good for Moose. I think he will be Impact champ soon. I think Kenny will win it first. A babyface will probably take it off Kenny, and then Moose it'll take it off that person, whoever that person is, whoever it needs to get elevated. Or I kind of don't want it to be Rich Swann that beats Kenny. It might be because everybody loves Rich Swann. Every time somebody talks about Rich Swann, they were asking Carl Anderson about Rich Swann, and he's like, this guy is amazing. It's just different. Then they were talking about, Kenny and Rich Swann working together as opposed to Kenny working with other people. And it's like when Kenny was working with Rich, it was up another level. And I'm like, I do see Swann's athleticism is through the roof.
I've never denied that. I'll let you finish, but
it's probably all the other stuff for Rich that yeah.
It's
okay.
Listen, this match, this match was kind of a match that originally when it was announced, we were supposed to be Kenny and the Good Brothers against Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns. I saw the match and I thought it to be a very anticlimactic main event. Like because again, I can as much as I'm not a fan of Kenny Omega, and I like the Good Brothers, but when I see the opposition on the other side, I'm like, none of these guys, and with all due respect to Alex Shelley, to Chris Sabin, and to Rich Swann, I'm like, none of you guys are main event talents. Not in my eyes. You're all great, fantastic in-ring talents. No disrespect meant to any of you. But would I pay money to see y'all in the main event? Hell no, I wouldn't. Now you insert Moose into the match when Alex Shelley was taken out and you insert Moose. I'm like, oh shit, now we got something here. Moose looks like a freaking star. And I've not been a big fan of Moose in the past. I thought that when he was, and of course, in the years that he was in Ring of Honor, he was very new. He was a big man with a lot of potential, but there was still a lot of learning to do. When he was in Impact Wrestling, I kind of got a little frustrated with him at a certain point because I was like, all right, you're no longer the rookie kid with a lot of potential. You're a guy that's just kind of floundering. And over the last few months that I've seen him, I'm like, you look like a main event star. Physically, his body has changed to where he's toned up. He looks fantastic. His promo is believable. His in-ring presentation, he's finally learned how to work like a big man. Do the big man shit. He's learned how to do it properly. With the one exception of the match when he did the Spanish fly off the top rope, and I screamed at the TV when that wasn't the finish, I was like, if it's not the finish, don't freaking do it. I don't care how athletic and how cool looking it is. Unless it's the finish, you don't freaking do it. That's my only one little criticism there with Moose. When I saw the match, I was like, the first thing I thought to myself was as I watched this match is like, this match was too long. Not every match with Kenny Omega needs to be 30 minutes. I'm sorry, it just doesn't need to be. This is a match that could have been perfectly fine going maybe 15, 18 minutes. You don't need to have the incessant, just freaking incessant, heel heat, pseudo babyface comeback, cutoff, 3 or 4 different finishes, constant cutoffs by the partners on the other team of the guy getting pinned. All 6 guys wrestling in the ring, just incessantly. Referees standing in the corner doing absolutely nothing, not trying to stop them, not even mimicking, doing nothing to try to make it look like a tag team match. There was a point where the heels, were trying to get heat, and it almost seemed like they didn't know. This was a moment where Kenny Omega did the right thing in terms of going into the babyface's corner, trying to punk them out to draw them into the ring so the referee could push them back. And then Anderson and Gallows, who are two very experienced tag team wrestlers, just kind of stood there. And I think it was Rich Swann who was in the corner selling. And I'm like, do you not see what the hell's happening? Get in the ring and double team this freaking guy. That's the whole reason why Omega went into the corner, to do that. Like there were like little things where I was just like, dude, it's just y'all, something's not clicking in the basics, like the fundamental basics. Again, when I saw this match, I understood the original finish would probably be to have Kenny beat Rich Swann. Fine. Once Moose was inserted into this match, I'd have been like, hell no, we need to change this finish. Baby faces need to go over. Moose needs to beat Omega. Beat Omega. He needs to beat him. Why is that? Because ultimately what you want to have is you want to tell the story of Moose versus Kenny Omega down the line, where now Moose can become a pseudo babyface, defending Impact Wrestling, and then Kenny Omega can be a chicken shit heel, because there's actually somebody that when you look at Moose standing next to Kenny Omega, you're like, all right, I could believe that Moose can beat this guy's ass. And Kenny Omega would want nothing to do with him. You have a story to tell. And then you know what Moose can do? Moose can actually start grabbing Don Callis and be like, Don, what's going on? And Moose is still kind of like heelish, but he's slightly turning. Or if you wanted to do the whole Kenny Omega beats Rich Swann deal, Moose needs to turn. Moose needs to turn on his partners and cause them to lose. Because to have Rich Swann just take the fall, just get beat, he looks like a plate full of piss. He looks like shit at the end of this match. Regardless of how long the match went, how many great moves he did, you have to give, if Rich Swann is the Impact champion, you got to give him an out. You can't try to make Kenny Omega look so great that you take a guy like Rich Swann, who, again, Rich Swann has a great story. I know the guys love him. I just don't see him as a top guy. So to have him be the world champion is already a big stretch for me as a fan. If you're going to beat him and have Omega beat him with the one-winged angel, there's got to be a point where Rich Swann gets an out. And Rich Swann has had issues with Moose, because in storyline, Moose took out Shelly, and Moose has been walking around calling himself the TNA champion, which has always rubbed Rich Swann the wrong way, because he's the Impact champion. He's the he's the legitimate Impact champion. So in story, that only makes sense. And they didn't do any of that. They made Moose look like a pseudo babyface in this match. So they give Moose nothing. They give him nothing to reach for at the end. It's like, you got to start over with Moose. In terms of giving him direction and story, you still go with the original finish, but you have Rich Swann now look inferior to Kenny Omega. And the idea is that when these guys eventually wrestle in a one-on-one match, that you as the fan believe that they're on an even playing field. I never believed that to begin with, because if I had to choose between the two of them, I'm like, all right, I'll take Omega. I don't like him, but if I have to be like, all right, who can I believe as a main event star? I'm like, if it's between the two of them, I'll take Omega. But man, oh man, there was just too many things about this match. Too long. They do way too much stuff. Way too much. And the finish was just bad, because I don't think that they gave Rich Swann any out. They did not give Moose, who had a tremendous performance. Out of the 6 guys in the ring, Moose was the only guy that looked like somebody. He's the only guy that looked and felt like a star out of the 6 guys in that match. And to basically feel like Moose had nothing at the end, that was disappointing.
I mean, I was totally fine with the match. The finish, in terms of giving Rich Swann out, I can see that. Um, I'll probably watch it again to see what kind of damage was done to Rich Swann in case I missed something. But if it's just Kenny destroys him and then just pins him, then okay, I can see that. I think Moose had his best performance of his career. So he got over with what he did. I don't think you need to give him more. I like the story that they told because to get him into the match, because Rich Swann, to me, if Moose turns on Rich Swann, then Rich Swann's an idiot. Because Rich Swann allowed it, and Rich Swann was convinced.
Well, the thing is with Rich Swann is that Rich was this was TNA management that picked Moose to be in this match. It wasn't Rich Swann.
Said no. Rich Swann said no. We're not gonna have this match. And then what's his name?
Scott
D'Amore, yes, Scott D'Amore tells him, "Look, man, this guy's good. He's a very good athlete. He's gonna help us win." And
he's the best replacement you have in the locker room.
Rich Swann is like, yeah, he's a great athlete, but have you seen what he's done to me and what he's been doing to everybody in the locker room? Like, this guy is not. I can't trust him.
If I'm Scott D'Amore, I'd be like, listen, there's no one in this locker room better. I know that he made mention of Willie Mack, which is a nice reference because it's doing a little callback to when Moose put him down. But at the same time, you're playing up all the evil things that Moose has done. And Moose essentially agreed to be a pseudo babyface for the sake of defending Impact Wrestling, which is fine, because if you're facing the invaders from the outside, which really it's only one invader because Omega's the only one from AEW, because the Good Brothers are they're the Impact Tag Champions, and Don Callis is like the vice president of
it's not really
so
it's not really an invader storyline.
I get it, but what I'm saying is that if he's agreeing to team with the baby faces and being like, I'm going to defend Impact Wrestling, he can say that and be truthful about the whole reference he does with the football stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, hey, I'm just out here. I'm gonna do me, and he gets his opening. Moose does, and he just lays Swann down, just because it has to be a little bit emphatic. Because at the end, what you want to do is that if Moose had the best performance of his career, which I agree with you, I think he did. This was a fantastic performance by Moose. The thing is that I feel that at the end of it, Moose was not the focal point. He didn't have. There was nothing within. They're still trying to focus it on Kenny Omega and Rich Swann, and I'm like, there should have been a way to give Moose some kind of shine to where you can see him lurking in the background, and you don't have to kind of write a story to insert him later on, because the setup was already well placed in this match, and
he's positioned. He's the number one contender. No matter, he's the number one contender right now in storyline, so he's good. He has direction. The only problem is that because Kenny's a heel and Swann is a babyface, they're probably going to go with Swann whether we like it or not, and they feel very strongly about Swann. So Swann will probably beat Moose. Unfortunately, I think he's going to beat him because they're going to face each other soon.
I honest to God hope not.
Yeah, so that's the problem when you have when you're trying to keep multiple people hot. It's they should probably avoid. I would avoid it. I would have avoided it until it was time, but
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Hopefully they give Moose an out or whatever, or they find a clever way to get out of that match.
The way you get out of the match is just don't do it. Have Rich Swann lose the title to Omega, and then you have Moose chase him. That's just it.
All right, so we're running short on time, so let's really quickly. On Impact, you had Matt Hardy show up with Private Party. Matt Hardy is like in a almost manager agent, like a movie agent almost, like, but he's a scumbag. He's doing it in a heelish way and taking advantage of Private Party. But he did get them an opportunity. So he's trying to score a tag team title match. Good Brothers are like, no, 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 no. Because Sabin and Storm are also trying to get a title match. So they basically set up the main event. You guys have to face each other. Winner can get a title shot. And Private Party, of course, wins. So they'll be getting a title shot. I'm not sure if they mentioned when, but they'll get a title shot. I'm completely okay with this. When they started, when we heard the rumors or whatever, Impact might be working AEW or whatever, this is exactly what I wanted it to be. I wanted younger guys from AEW to come to Impact and hopefully get more reps in, get on TV, make a little bit of a splash, get out and bring somebody else in. So Private Party is literally a perfect candidate for what I wanted it to be. You can do the bigger matches, but for regular television, every other week, if you're gonna have somebody show up, these are the people I want to see from AEW side. I want to see young people from AEW show up on Impact. I kind of want to see veterans from Impact show up on AEW. That's just for my flavor. That's exactly what I wanted. I want a Sammy Guevara to go after the X Division title. I want Private Party to show up. On the other side, I want the Good Brothers. I want Motor City Machine Guns. I want a lot of the girls, Deonna Purrazzo, things like that. Moose, you don't want Deonna Purrazzo to show up on AEW?
Deonna Purrazzo as far away from AEW as possible.
Why?
Because of the way that she's being presented. I say this with all due respect to the AEW women's division. You know how I feel about them. And in all honesty, if she's the Impact Women's Champion, then again, if you want to present her as hot shit, she ain't coming to nobody's front door. You're coming to my house. That's how she should be. That's how I would present her.
Well, Kenny Omega is being presented as hot shit. He's working both shows. So
it's a different circumstance.
I think I could work both shows, but Deonna Purrazzo can't. I think if you ask Deonna Purrazzo, she would want to show up on Dynamite.
I'm sure she would. I'm sure she would.
And if she's as good as she says she is, this is your chance to prove it. Work with somebody who's not as good as you are, carry them through a match, and get a good match out of them. Let's see.
That's gonna be tough because they're gonna.
This is a partnership. If I thought the AEW was getting something out of it, you thought AEW was getting nothing out of it. So if they're getting nothing out of it,
I still kind of do. I'm not convinced yet.
Well, they've already scored exactly the buzz that they've created for themselves. I know you don't care about Bullet Club, Lou, but Bullet Club was more talked about than a lot of shit.
I'll tell you why it doesn't matter. The reason why it doesn't matter is because ultimately, and of course I'm not looking at the ratings as the ultimate indicator. It's just a matter that when you're talking about the buzz that it creates, dude, the buzz that it creates within the internet community of wrestling fans. Listen, these are people that already they love Kenny Omega, and they have the pseudo Bullet Club anyway. They just call them the Elite. They already had the Bullet Club in AEW. Yeah. They just called them the Elite. The fact that you're going to bring in the Good Brothers, who cares? That's what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter.
Care about the Good Brothers. What do you mean it doesn't matter?
What I mean is that incorporating the Good Brothers.
If WWE was doing the same exact shit that AEW is doing, people would be losing their minds in excitement.
I certainly wouldn't.
Well, Lou,
they tried doing it. They tried doing it, and it didn't work.
WWE has not worked with any other company.
No, not working with other companies, meaning taking talents that have worked in other companies, they come to the WWE, and then they try to do some kind of reincarnation of said gimmicks that they worked in.
Yeah, but they did it. First of all, they did it horribly. Second of all, they weren't bringing people from other companies that were still in other companies. That's the point.
Why would they do that?
Why not? I know to you they're too good to work with anybody.
It's not that they're too
But
good.
unfortunately, Raw is Impact tonight was way better than Raw.
Okay.
It's not close. It is not close. Private Party shows up. I'm like, oh shit, what's going on? Zach
Listen,
Cardona cutting a promo. It's exciting. It's new. It's fresh.
no. It's new. Here's the deal. When it comes to this whole thing with AEW coming into Impact Wrestling, it made sense when it was just Omega, because Omega being the champion and essentially doing a Benedict Arnold taking the AEW title, going with his longtime mentor Don Callis, who is in charge of Impact Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
They make Tony Khan and the executives in AEW look like doofs. That's a good storyline. It doesn't matter if it's a partnership, they're handshaking, kissing cousins. It doesn't matter. You present that storyline so that Omega gets the heat for being able to bounce on both shows and give the rub that way.
Like and subscribe, everyone.